Shalom, everyone. Hope you are well. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Lori. Shabbat Ivan. Listen, we are living in a crazy world. There is so much that is going on. How can we rise? How do we rise above the chaos? I'm excited about what we're going to be talking about tonight because I believe it is going to give us some insight into what is happening in the world and a little bit of what our response needs to be, and tied to this week's reading in the book of Numbers. So Shabbat Shalom, Virgil, Melanie, Linda, Lori, Rick. Thank you, my man. Good to see you here on Facebook. We're hanging out. I feel like we're family here. We get together pretty much every Friday and we learn and we study together. Aaron, Deb. So thank you guys, Jackie, for making us a part of your family, making us part of your Friday evenings, making us a part of your Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, Mark, Arlene, Jen, Fortune. Hope you're having a good time out in Los Angeles. And Sharon, Mike, Shabbat Shalom to you in Amarillo. Got to get the Amarillo right? All right. Paula, Denise, good to see you. Asher, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. So guys, I'm excited about what we're going to be talking about this week. How do we rise above the chaos? How do we understand the times and seasons in which we're living in? And again, what should our response be? How do we handle chaos? How do we view it, and conflict and everything that is going on? These are important things that we need to understand if we are going to be a light in the night. God wants us to be a light in the night. He wants us to illuminate, but we have to understand the times and the seasons in which we are living in. Mads, Shabbat Shalom. Connie, Eric. So let's get ready and begin to jump in as our friends join us. So this week's reading is in the book of Numbers. It's in Numbers chapter 16 is where it begins as we journey through the book of Numbers. And it tells the story of Korah, in Hebrew, Korach. Can you say Korach? Korach, you get the Korach. In English, Korah. And Korach, or Korah, leads a rebellion against Moses and Aaron that has some really terrible consequences. Shalom, Sarah in Texas. Terry, Helena, Shabbat Shalom. Glad you are joining us. So Korah, or in Hebrew, Korach, leads this rebellion. But really, to understand what's going on here, and this ties into a little bit about what we're seeing in the world and what Yeshua says about the end times, is that Korach's name is made up of 3 letters. So Hebrew is built on a trilineal root system, fancy way of saying most Hebrew words have 3 consonants at its root. And the 3 consonants at the root of Korach's name is Kuf, Resh, and Chet. Kuf, Resh, and Chet. Okay? And the root of his name gives insight into his character and the nature of his sin. Because the 3 letters, the trilateral root that his name is built upon, Korah's name built upon, literally means ice or cold. So at the root of Korah's name is the word for ice or cold. In Hebrew, it's kerach. Korach, kerach. There's no vowels in Hebrew. So it has different vowels, but it has the exact same consonants. And as we read, this example is Job chapter 6:16. My brothers have dealt deceitfully like a brook, like the streams of the brook that pass away, which are dark because of the ice, and into which snow vanishes, which are dark because of the ice. The word for ice there is kerach, the same root as korach. So what does this tell us? What is the significance? At the root of Korah's rebellion was a heart that had grown cold towards God and his appointed leaders, Moses and Aaron. Korach's names are identity. Names are destiny. His name is connected to the word for cold. So Korah had developed a cold approach to God, a cold approach to his word that caused a spiritual numbness that progressed into a deadly hypothermia. You can say you believe in God and you can have a cold faith. You can study the word in a way that is cold, that's freezing, that's icy, that brings death and doesn't bring life. It's the opposite of what happens on Shavuot Pentecost with the tongues of fire over their head. So I want you to think about this for a moment. In Matthew 24, it says this, verse 11 through 13, many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. Because lawlessness will multiply, the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end shall be saved. So I want you to see, so Korah leads this rebellion, this lawlessness, because there's a coldness in him, a numbness, a hypothermia in his approach. And this sounds exactly like what Yeshua, Jesus, is talking about, that in the end of days, there's going to be false prophets that are going to arise. They're going to lead people astray. It's going to cause lawlessness to abound. And this lawlessness is going to cause the heart of many to grow cold. And I think this is something that we need to understand on a deeper level, because you can look at what's happening in the world around us and say, what the heck is going on? How are we to understand this? And I think we have some insight and perspective here. So what I want us to understand is this. The best word to describe the Matthew 24 passage, the lawlessness that multiplies, the heart that grows cold, the false prophets, it connects back to what was being experienced with Moses and Korah. Shabbat Shalom, Carol, is the word golah. It's exile. Exile and chaos that is rooted in a disconnection. Exile and chaos. Can you say golah? Gola, golah, which means exile. In Hebrew, I want you to see this. Golah means exile. Geula, the opposite of exile, is redemption. So exile, Golah, redemption, Geula. But this is the amazing thing that I want you to see. There is only one letter difference between exile and redemption. It is the letter Aleph. When you remove the Aleph from the letter Golah, you end up with when you remove the Aleph from Geula, you end up with Golah, exile. One letter difference. So the letter Aleph in Hebrew is the letter that most represents the name of God. It's the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So Adonai begins with the letter Aleph. Elohim begins with the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, the letter Aleph. Can you say Aleph? It's a letter that represents God more than any other letter. So here's the point. When you remove God from your nation, when you remove God from your life, when you remove God from your family, when you remove God, the Aleph, and he's not first. Aleph has a numerical value. When God is not first in our lives and in our nation, what happens? We end up, because we took him out, we end up with exile. Exile, when you take God out, what happens? You end up with a vacuum. You end up with a vacated space. Whenever space is meant to be filled, something is going to rush in and fill the space. If God is not filling this space, then there are other things that are not God, not good, that are filling this space. And so, example of that, Yeshua casts out the demons and the demons are gone. And he says, but if something doesn't come and fill that space, even more demons will come and fill that space, and that person will be worse than before. It wasn't enough just removing the bad. That person had to be filled with the good, because if you were to clean that person's house but don't fill it with the presence and the goodness of God's presence and of his spirit, it's going to end up inhabited by even worse than before. And that is what we're seeing. There is a vacuum of leadership. There is a vacuum that is of God, a void, a vacuum that's been created because the Aleph, has been taken out of the equation, and it's led to exile and chaos like it was in the beginning. And the earth was formless and void, chaos, and darkness was over the face of the deep. So how do we overcome chaos? We have to put God back in. We have to restore the letter Aleph. When we put the Aleph back in, we go from exile to redemption. And that's what's happening in our world today. But to understand that the Aleph has a numerical value of 1, it's yes, God is 1, so we have to make him number 1. We have to place him at the center. But Yeshua, Jesus' last prayer is that these and those would be one as he and the Father one. Yeshua prayed for Jews and Gentiles, for God's people to be one. We have to be one like God is one and represent God, who is the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the end. To have a good end, you have to have a good beginning. To have a good beginning, there has to be God at the center, and there has to be oneness and unity. And so if we as God's people are not united as one in him in fulfillment of Yeshua's prayer, guess what? There is going to be a vacuum. There is going to be a chaos, and there is chaos in the body of Messiah and so much disunity. And we need to join together and become one in him to overcome the chaos and the confusion. God is not a God of disorder. He is a God of order. Chaos is bad. So I just want to take a moment. I want to declare unity in the name of Yeshua. Let's just come into agreement now. Unity in our communities, unity in the body of Messiah, unity in our family, unity between Israel and the nations, between Jew and Gentile, that there would be a unity. And unity doesn't mean uniformity. It doesn't mean we have to all be the same, do the same, even agree on all matters of faith and practice. But what it means is that we have a greater sense of connection and family and want to see the good and do good to one another. When there's not that oneness and unity, where God is not at the center, it inevitably leads to chaos, and a vacuum is created. That vacuum is filled. It creates, as it says, and the heart of many will grow cold. It creates that vacuum, and lawlessness creates a coldness and a numbness, because God's love, God's presence, his love is not there. And so everything grows cold. It's like outer space. It's freezing because it doesn't have the rays of the sun filling that space like it does here on earth. But this is also connected on a deeper level to understand on a spiritual warfare level. This is the spirit of Amalek. Some of you guys have heard of Amalek. Amalek is the first person to attack Israel when they come out of Egypt. We'll talk more about that in a minute. And Haman, boo, Haman, the bad guy in the book of Esther who tries to commit genocide against the Jewish people, he is a descendant of Amalek. That's why he hates and wants to destroy not just Haman, who won't bow down, but all of the Jewish people. But I want us to see what what the Torah has to say about Amalek. Remember Deuteronomy 25:17. Remember what Amalek did to you on the way as you were coming out of Egypt, how he attacked you on the way and attacked your rear ranks, all the stragglers at your rear when you were tired and weary, and he did not fear God. Another way of understanding this is the concept of Amalek in a spiritual sense, as they express in this verse 25. It says, when he met you by the way, is literally Asher Karcha, can also means that Amalek not just met you on the way, but can mean he cooled you off. He cooled off your passion. He cooled off your enthusiasm for God and for each other. So part of the spirit of Amalek is a spirit of coldness. It's that same spirit that's connected to Korah, to his rebellion as a false leader. The spirit of Amalek wants to quench your passion for God, for spiritual things. It wants to make your love and your passion grow cold. That's what Amalek does. He cools you down. The cooling off of Amalek, like the cooling off of Korah, we see it in the world today. There is a cooling off of coldness and a hardness of heart. People's hearts have frozen. There's an indifference. There's apathy. All of that is connected to coldness towards one another on so many different levels. And that is the spirit of Amalek manifesting in the world. And even this anti-Semitic spirit that we see rising around the world of wanting to attack Israel and the Jewish people. Friends, this is rooted in the coldness, in the spirit of Amalek, the spirit of Korah. But even on a personal level, all of us have to fight that spirit of Amalek in our own spiritual life, because in our worship, in our prayer, in our study, it's easy to lose our passion and for it just to become a cold ritual. You can read the word in a cold way. There's many people who read the word and it's legalistic and there's no life in it, or even pray and there's no life in it, or even do things to other, but they're just doing it by rote. Friends, we have to keep the fire burning. Say, Lord, keep the fire burning in me. Lord, fan the flames in me. Increase my enthusiasm. Increase my zeal. Increase my passion for God. Let me overcome the spirit of Amalek and the coldness and the chaos that is pervading our world in which we are living today. That's right. Returning to our first love, not going from hot to lukewarm and ultimately to cold. We need that passion for God, that zeal for God. Hope that makes sense. But I want to get very practical. Because the reality is part of the chaos, part of what is happening in the world today is that there's so much conflict. And it's not a question like Korah, Korach in Hebrew, Korah, he was cold. That coldness led to the rebellion. That rebellion led to chaos. And commenting upon the issue of Korach, the rabbis say any argument that is for this, that is not any argument that is for the sake of heaven will endure, but one that is not for the sake of heaven will not endure. But what is the difference between an argument that is for the sake of heaven and one that is not? Korah's dispute with Moses is the prime example that is given of an argument that is not for the sake of heaven. See, the reality is that conflict is going to come. Conflict and disagreement is inevitable. And Korah's dispute ends in a great judgment. But in our daily lives, as we look at the world around us, how do we handle conflict? How do we rise above how do we allow the conflict not to create chaos and bring coldness? Because when we have conflict and disagreements and arguments in a way that is not good and not godly, it damages us and it damages people. And that damage is one of the number one reasons why people walk away from God, walk away from faith, walk away from God's community. Shabbat Shalom, Cecilia. Katrina, Shabbat Shalom. So how do we know if an argument is for the sake of heaven? How do we make sure when we get into a disagreement that we're honoring God and that it's for the sake of heaven? So this week's reading in the book of Numbers gives us great insight, a lot of wisdom to understanding conflict and how to understand conflict. So the first thing we have to ascertain when we look at an argument or we're in an argument is the motivation of the people that are involved in the dispute. If it is evident that one person in the argument or the dispute is motivated by a sinful or bad desire, then that argument is clearly not for the sake of heaven. And we do have to be careful here because it is hard to ascertain the motivations of people's hearts. But we can pray and we can be given discernment and we can look. So if they're motivated by a bad or sinful desire, then clearly that argument is not for the sake of heaven. And this was absolutely true of Korach. He was motivated by pride and a desire for power and prominence. He wanted to be the man. He wanted to be the Mac. Moses, why have you gone too far? Why do you think that you are greater? All of God's people are holy. Listen, his argument sounded good. It sounded spiritual. But his motivation was self-seeking and sinful. His motivation was evil, and it is highlighted by the New Covenant, by the New Testament. Jude chapter 1, verse 8 through 11. Likewise, all these dreamers defile the flesh, reject authority, speak evil of dignitaries, yet Michael the archangel, we're talking about the highest angel in heaven, Michael the archangel, when he was contending with the devil, when he disputed about the body of Moses, there was a dispute he's telling us about Moses' body. Satan wanted to take Moses' body. Michael was going to protect his body from being taken by the enemy. Dared not bring a reviling accusation. So Michael, the archangel Michael, did not bring a accusation against Satan in this matter, but he said, "The Lord rebuke you." And then Jude goes on to say, "Woe to them, for they have gone in the way of Cain, have run greedily into the era of Balaam for profit, and perish in the rebellion of Korah. So if the archangel Michael didn't speak disparagingly of the evil Satan when he fought over the body of Moses, how much more should we guard our tongues from speaking evil of other people when we have a dispute with them? A person's actions, as well as the words that proceed from their mouth, provide great insight into their motivations. So listen, the words that come out of people's mouth give insight. All you have to do is listen long enough. Yeshua, Jesus says, out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. Out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. Hey, Eric, the difference between a servant leader and a self-serving leader. Korach, that is a good word, my friend. Shabbat shalom. So we have to understand and seek to understand the motivations, but we have to understand, we have to examine, secondly, the method of those in the dispute. Clearly, Korah's his method was inappropriate. His manner was inappropriate, but his method was inappropriate. Instead of speaking with Moses directly, he went behind Moses' back, criticized him, slandered him, won support from the men of renown, from some of the greatest leaders among the people, got over 250 people plus Dathan and Abiram to side with him and accuse Moses of overstepping his authority and abusing his power. This is Moses, who's called by God the most humblest man in all the earth. So Korah's actions were the natural outworking of his sinful intent. His actions were the outworking of his wrong intent. So not only is a person's method of dealing with conflict important, but the manner in which we approach a conflict and a disagreement is also very important as well. The manner and the method. What is the tone of the argument? Is it primarily pejorative and disrespectful? Is it an attack on the other person's character? Is it presenting negative information that is not related to the disagreement? I like it. Tamara writes, slow to speak, quick to listen. Yes, Yolanda, what's in your heart comes out of your mouth. Exactly. Exactly. So this is a concern even in some of the presidential debate on the right and the left, on some of the rhetoric on both sides. It's a lot of unhealthy, unwholesome speech that's not honoring God. The truth can be spoken, but it needs to be spoken in love and respect. So if the method of argumentation is in this way, it's usually just a smokescreen for a solid lack of evidence or substance to the argument. We have to always be respectful of other people. Listen, part of that respect is considering other people's viewpoints. To fairly critique or criticize another person's viewpoint, you have to be able to articulate the other person's point of view accurately. I should be able to set forth the argument of the person I'm in a disagreement with and be able to repeat it to them so that they understand what I'm saying. Friends, this is great even when we have conflict with our spouses, with friends, with family. Part of honoring is making sure that other person feels like they're heard. They feel like we understand where we're coming from, where they're coming from. It doesn't mean in the end we have to agree, but part of the respect and the honor is seeking to really understand their point of view. But the truth is, so many times when we feel we're right and there's a self-righteousness and there's an unhealthy motivation, We want to be understood, but we have no desire to understand. That is never going to lead to anywhere good. And it's going to lead to alienation in the relationship. It's going to lead to division and schism and chaos. Yes, honor others more highly than yourself. Part of the motivation for Korach is a desire for honor. He's motivated by honor, an unhealthy motivation for honor. Seeking honor in an unhealthy way removes a person to this world. We need to give honor, but not seek honor. So we see this. This demonstrates that one has to first understand before trying to be understood. And so what is the litmus test by which we gauge if we're voicing our opinion for the sake of heaven or not? And I just want to say something. Look, one thing I've found among a lot of people is that they're not mature enough to have a disagreement. Friends, it's okay to disagree. There is a disagreement for the sake of heaven. It's like iron sharpening iron. Sparks fly, but both sides walk away sharper as a result. It's the spirit and the motivation in which we do it in that is absolutely key. In fact, there was this argument between two great rabbinic schools and two great rabbis, Hillel and Shammai. And they argued for many, many years. But because Hillel always acted and behaved with humility and modesty and demonstrated good character and kindness, in Jewish tradition, we go according to the opinion of Hillel and not Shammai. So how do we gauge if we can't get it? It's a sign of spiritual immaturity to get offended when someone disagrees with us and we take offense. But how do we understand it? Because there could be an argument for the sake of heaven. But how do we understand an argument for the sake of heaven, an argument not for the sake of heaven? The question is, did I take the time to hear the other side? Did I take the time to seek clarity and make sure I truly understood the other person's perspective? But also, there's a third aspect to determine if an argument is for the sake of heaven or not, and that's to consider the potential and actual consequences that results from each position. See, it's interesting that in Hebrew, the word for responsibility is achrayut. The word for responsibility is achrayut, and it comes from the word in Hebrew after. See, when a responsible action, when you take an action that is responsible, or you speak responsibly, or you act responsibly, or you argue responsibly, at the root of that word is the word after, because part of responsibility is you have to consider what comes after. What are the consequences of your actions and your words before you speak them? Because the potential and actual consequences of our words and our actions, what results from them, is important. That's why to run into a movie theater or a crowd and yell fire, even if you're kidding, is irresponsible because the people are going to get hurt. So the actions of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, Aviram, and On were divisive. They were divisive from the start, and they led to a schism among God's people. Korah was projecting his own sinful motivations and desires on Moses and Aaron. So Korah and his cohorts, their rebellion could not have been for the sake of heaven because their argument does not endure. Not only does their argument not endure, but as a result, 14,700 people of the children of Israel die as a result of the rebellion that they lead. And part of the problem is that too often people put being right over doing right. How many times is being right more important than doing right? Friends, doing right is always more important than being right. Rabbi Sachs says this: there are two kinds of conflict, an argument for the sake of truth and an argument for the sake of victory. Friends, it's not about just being right. It's about truth. It's about doing good. It's about embodying the heart and soul and attributes and fruit of God and of the Spirit of Yeshua, Jesus. And I think we need to understand, it doesn't matter if you're on the right or on the left. All of us, or even if we're not even talking about, even on our personal lives, we have to understand these things, especially in this political season. But I also just want to tie it quickly into the numbers, because Korah was a Levite. And at the heart of Korah's rebellion was his desire not just to serve and minister into the temple, which he did, but he wanted to usurp priesthood from Aaron, the high priest, and his descendants. The Hebrew word for priesthood is kahuna. Can you say kahuna? Kahuna has a numerical value of 80. So does ha-kohen. The priest has a numerical value of 80. Why is that significant? Because right now we're in the 5780 on the Hebrew calendar. We're in the decade of the 80s. 80 is the numerical value of the Hebrew word pay. Pay, can you say pay? Pay in Hebrew literally means mouth. The Hebrew letter pay means mouth, and it has the numerical value of 80. So 80 in Hebrew is written with the letter pay. Pay literally means mouth, has a numerical value of 80. Priesthood means 80. The priest has a numerical value of 80. Why? What's the connection there? Because the primary role and responsibility of the priest was to use their mouth to praise, to pray, and intercede on behalf of the people of God and speak on behalf of God to the children of Israel. And we can either use our pay for good and bring blessing and fulfill our priestly calling, or like Korah, we can use our mouth for evil to speak evil and to stir up dissensions, divisions, and strife. Those who use their mouth for negative purposes, such as gossip and slander and manipulation, will be spiritually unclean, and Hebrews will be unclean. Tameh yiyeh also adds up to 80. When we use our mouth 80 in a way that's inappropriate, we become unclean, which has a numerical value of 80. We are in the decade of the pay, the decade of the mouth on the Hebrew calendar. Pay is the first letter of the Hebrew word for breakthrough. The word for breakthrough, as we talked about this before, is paratz. Paratz begins with the letter pay. It means breakthrough. So, friends, the key to your breakthrough in this season is your mouth. The key to breakthrough in our nation is the pay. It is our mouth. We need to use our pay to pray. Use our pay to pray for our nation and our government and for unity. We use our pay to pray and to intercede. We need to use our pay for good and to diffuse arguments, not to create more. So to make declarations over our nation. So spiritual and emotional and material breakthrough begins with the letter pay, of praise, of prayer, of declaration of the promises of God. Pei is also the middle letter of the word for healing in Hebrew, Rapha, which why? Because at the center of healing is the pay, is the mouth, is prayer and declaration and confession. So if we want to for healing, we got to speak it, we got to declare it, we got to use our pay to pray and declare to bring healing and wholeness. There's more here. If you read, if you're reading this week's Torah portion, our weekly guide, Journey Through the Numbers, you can read the rest of it. But friends, I want you to join me now and to make declarations. I declare in the name of Yeshua that God is going to give you a spirit of wisdom and understanding to discern and understand the times and to know what to do, that the same Spirit of God that hovered over the face of the deep when it was chaos and void and brought order out of chaos, that Spirit lives in you, and that Spirit that lives in you will empower your pay, empower your mouth to bring order out of chaos. God has made you someone that can speak to the chaos, that can step into the chaos and bring order and structure out of it. That I declare over you right now that you will bring order out of chaos. I declare over you right now in the name of Yeshua that you will have wisdom and discernment to know what arguments are for the sake of heaven, what the motivations are, to know good from evil. I pray that God to declare over you right now that your heart is not going to grow cold, that you're not going to experience the rebelliousness and the lawlessness and the fear that's in the world, and that will not cause your heart to grow cold. But I pray that God would increase the passion, that God would increase the fire within you, that he would fuel that in the name of Yeshua. And I declare that God, yes, I declare that God, in the name of Yeshua, would bring healing and wholeness and breakthrough in your life now, in the name of Yeshua, and that he would give you the courage and the strength to declare with passion his promises over your life, because every promise is yes and amen, that you would see those promises come to pass. Friends, I'm just believing that you're not going to give in to the fear that's in the world today, but you're going to come in faith, making declarations. You're going to stand in the gap. In this week's Torah portion, it says that Moses and Aaron stood in the gap between the living and the dead. Friends, where are those who claim to follow Yeshua, who are going to stand in the gap between life and death, between blessing and cursing? We have to stand in the gap and speak and intercede. So I pray that God would use you in this way, that this would be a season of breakthrough and blessing in your life in the name of Yeshua. And I just want to encourage you all, listen, sign up for the weekly guide, journey with us through the scriptures, journey with us through the numbers. Tell your friends, if you've been blessed, be a blessing. Tell your friends about breakthrough. We're just hearing more testimonies, life being changed. Get it on Amazon, get it on our website. But also, friends, listen, if you are blessed, partner with us. God blesses those who sow into the things of God, who sow into the work of Israel, of the Jewish people, of the Messianic movement. There's a special blessing. I will bless those who bless Israel. So help us get this out. We can't do this without you. Thank you to all of you. I know many of you are partnering with us, and we pray for you and we love you and declare that blessing over you now in the name of Yeshua. Go to our website, check it out, tell your friends, and we're going to have more stuff coming in the future. I'm excited to share with you real soon. But I just pray over you, Sim Shalom Tova Bracha Chen V'Chesed V'Rachamim, that he should establish over you peace, mercy, goodness, and kindness in the name of Yeshua, our Messiah. I declare over you Shabbat Shalom in Yeshua's name. Amen. Yes, Cheryl, like Ezekiel. I love it. Kathleen, good to see you on here. It's been a long time. Paula, blessings on you. Mike, Shabbat Shalom, my friend. I miss you. We need to catch up. Tom, hey, Tom, man. We need to go back to Israel. Shalom to you in San Diego. Shalom to you in San Diego. Katie, good to see you. Can't wait to see you. And Rick, Cindy, Tracy, Walt, hey, my man out in Connecticut, a leader of leaders, Walt. I so appreciate you, and I love our discussions. Deb, Cecily, I just pray for a blessing over you, success for you in the real estate business. Stephanie, shalom to you. It's I missed those days up in Fresno. Renee, I just speak God's fullness over your life. Travis, you should not live out of the lack, but live out of the overflow. So I just want to thank you all. Let us know how we can be praying for you. And I just bless you in the name. Yes, are we planning tours for next year? We have tours going to Israel next year. Join us. We've got several tours going in the spring. We'll have at least 2 tours going next spring. Okay, so we'll those are on the website. Excited for you guys. I'm gonna tell you, many of you all came on this live stream, came to us with Israel. Nothing will change your life. If you want to encounter God and have a God experience and deeper encounter, come to Israel. It is awesome. So Asher, I bless you. Asher, praiseworthy. Asher, fortune, bless you with that. Eric Lee, man, I bless you, Eric. Yeah, Eric, we will be going in the spring and in the summer. We have both those, like one in the spring and one at the end of May, beginning of June. That one's not up yet, but it will be soon, God willing. Arlene, I pray for all of those who want to go to Israel. I pray that God would release the resources to be able to go. But I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom. Yes, Eric, I miss seeing you at the conference this summer. And by the way, Eric, Matt is coming out to see me in a couple days, so we'll be talking about you, my Hebrew homie. Anyway, love to you all, Helena, all of you. Say hi to the princess for me. Shabbat Shalom. Talk to you soon. God bless.